The goal of this video here is to teach you about all the different parts of the system before we actually start using them. What is each part and what is it all about? What's it used for? So, first of all, starting here, we have all of our inboxes. These inboxes are simply Take two. Take two. So this video here is simply to teach you about all of the parts of the system so that you're familiar with them even before we start actually using them. So we'll go through each little part and a brief explanation of how it's used. Most of the stuff I'm sure you already know, it's just common sense. Then we'll be able to get to the tools later on. So first of all, we have all of the inboxes. Inboxes are simple. They are simply places where we capture and write down all of this information that we have going on in our heads that we have to do. This is something as simple as the Todoist inbox that grabs everything from the phone when you add a new task from there, or even right inside of the computer program online. You have your other computer notes. People use things like sticky notes, Evernote, etc., etc. You have all your emails. You have your phone, which is everything from your voicemails, your texts, your voice audio notes, which a lot of people do capturing of those, which is like when you're driving or when you have bigger thoughts, maybe as you're chilling in bed for the night and you just want to reach over and grab the phone and have some deeper level thoughts of what things you want to get done to actually get it out of your head. And last thing is digital notes. Maybe some people use their phone for any type of bigger digital notes, which I really tend to stay away from as much as possible because that can be very slow. Next thing is the physical inbox. This is simply a pretty big little physical inbox that you have by your desk. It has big sides on it. It can hold everything from your mail to inbound packages to even act as if like the flashlight ran out of batteries and you just don't want to handle it now, so you throw it in there. Basically all these material objects and physical things that you do need to process and handle. Next thing, paper notes. Simple. All the notebooks that you use, whether if it's ones you carry around or even things like by your bed, something that simple. Facebook, you got your emails and you got your notifications there. We have them all on the list and we show them so you can just go right through them and actually what we call is processing all those inboxes so you can get them down to zero and get things very current. Now let's look at the actual parts of the system. Where do things go? First thing is the calendar. People are very familiar with the calendar, but a lot of people do misuse it. The calendar is the place where you actually have no room for error. You must be getting these things done for that day. You have things, specific day and time events. Very common, doctor appointments, what time you're meeting with your boss, what time you have some dates, all your different types of scheduled appointments. Now, the other thing that you use it for when there's no room for error is all-day events. Let's say if I'm going to say, hey, I'm definitely going to meet you on Tuesday, but we haven't decided yet on that day, but we're definitively meeting Tuesday. We'll just make an all-day event to say, hey, call X regarding meeting up today. Maybe your boss or client is only going to be in town for one day, and you got to call them on that day, and you must be following up on the day. Once again, to reiterate, that calendar is that thing. It just has no room for error, and it is just your main hub that you're going to be operating from. The next part of the calendar where there's no room for error is really specific recurring events. Let's say if you have rent due on day X of every month, you want to make sure you're watching that. You have a business meeting every Tuesday. Sales tax can be due every 20th of the month. Maybe you have something due once every 3 months, and for example, like quarterly business taxes, quarterly types of taxes. Once again, these items for the calendar are items which simply have no room for error. Basic rule of thumb of this is if you're moving calendar items at the end of the day because you didn't finish it, then you are misusing the purpose of the calendar. Those items would basically go into project and task management. It's like, hey, I'd really want this, get this done today. This does matter to today, and I'll do my best to get it done. So let's move on to the next part of the system, which is project and task management. And when I've been working with most people, easily over 80, maybe even 90% of people, simply, number one, are not using the right tool to manage their projects and tasks, and definitively how they are even getting items into the project and task management. How are they even getting them in there? How are they labeling them? And how are they even staying on top of them? This is where, hands down, most of the people just lose many, many hours, even every single week. So project and task management, though the concept is very simple. Hey, items which actually get completed when they're done. Buy a car, go get the milk. Maybe it's a bigger project like build this website. But eventually you get to a point to where, whether if it's just a simple thing, which we'll refer to as like a simple task or project, or it just has maybe one or a few moving parts to get it done, or something much more complex where it may take weeks to even months to complete the full scope of the project. Another part of that project and task management is simply called project and action support. That can both be a paper tray as well as any type of digital folders. So let's say you are working on some project and you have these papers that you need for later to actually be handy so that you can move the project forward. You can simply stick it right in your paper tray, which says, project and action support, or if it's coming through digitally, to drop it into your digital folder of saying, hey, this is project and action support. And you know that when you've written that item down to say, fill out this form, call Betty regarding X, and you actually have some supporting documentation for that, you know exactly where it is all the time, and you can just go right at it. It's just the fact that if people are truly out of their head, that most people actually spend a majority of their time looking for things which they need. That's where a good 50 to 70% of the time is wasted as well. So that's the definition of project and action support. Materials and items that you're going to need as you're moving forward with your projects. The next one is recurring management. And there's two kinds of recurring management. First of all, they are the things which recur, but they're not on a certain day. Hey, maybe you want to hit the dentist appointment once every 6 months. Maybe you want to get an oil change every 3 months. You're going to do your finances every month, etc., etc., etc. Just being a basic human being, this is where a lot of things are going to fall into to say, hey, I would like to do X, and this is how often I would like to be doing it. The next part is really things do recur, but it's on certain days. So we need to watch the actual day that's happening, and that will go into a different part of the actual task management system or recurring management. For example, hey, every 7th of the month, like you're doing cash flow, it's just got to be a trigger at that time. Every 25th of the month, you got to do X. Maybe you're paying bills on X day of the month, et cetera, et cetera. These are items which aren't really critical, but they are important on those certain days to get done. If it was just absolutely mission critical, like the rent, the bills, credit cards being due, things like that, that's all about the calendar so that they just are always getting hit all the time. You're looking at items like, hey, think about it, personal maintenance, home maintenance, car maintenance, finances, just all those things of being a human being, of where recurring list management takes place, let alone all the different type of projects and tasks that's going to trigger. Now the next part is list management. There's really two types of the lists which are here. The first one's really simple. We do use Todoist to keep these lists under the task management. And you're looking at things like, hey, you know, your books to read, your movies to watch, your dates to follow up on. Very simple list management. Where do you actually want to house these? The other one, which actually will dive into Excel, so you can use a tab for each one. You're looking at a lot bigger things. Hey, look at something like a travel list. How quick can you actually be packing within 15 to 20 minutes? Act as if you're going somewhere on Thursday, you're going to San Francisco. So on your calendar for Wednesday, you're going to be like, I'm packing for that. And you can actually go to your travel list and just crush right through it. You double check it in the morning and you're just gone. You will save hours and hours of packing time. And whenever all of a sudden you forget something or you think something that you want to be on there, you can just add it right to it. And it is pretty much bulletproof. Think about all the hours you'll be saving if you truly are a traveler, let alone even thinking about what you're forgetting. Another part is just a list with more complexity. Maybe you have a lot bigger social list going on, etc., where you can really build off of those. The next part is the reference filing. Hey, simple. It is both paper and it is digital. The paper side is just like your filing cabinet. Things you're just going to have to file away and or also need on hand for recurring things going on. For example, I always have to pull out my sales tax file as I'm doing that every month for the business. Maybe there's some things that I'm doing for the home that I need to pull out like once a quarter, contracts and things like that. So it happens both in the paper world as well as the digital world. And just like in the paper world as well as digitally, you can set up a file folder name under reference filing digitally for anything that you want to, your home, your finances, these contracts, etc. So you can have it easily match each other. But that one's a no-brainer. And the last part is simply called a tickler system, or what I like to refer to as like remind me. So let's say in 2 weeks, remind me to do this. Maybe I should make this decision in 3 weeks. I will follow up then. I'll follow up with so-and-so in like 2 weeks. Maybe like in 5 weeks, I want to see how this test is actually running. I'll just put a tickler or remind me into the system. And that way it reminds me on that date. Keeps the calendar clear. It keeps project and task management clear, though it's still used inside the project and task management. It's very simple, as you will see. So the whole goal of this is really teaching the parts of the system, and the next phase will be actually processing all of the inboxes so that you can get extremely efficient at grabbing all the information that you've been getting out of your head, making the decisions on which part of the system it actually goes into and how, and you can just move forward to greatly increase that decision-making speed so they can get to the point where you're actually going to be doing a lot more.